Hey there. Welcome back to these conversations with no one, where I try to share my experience of living in a state of non-attachment to duality in my character. I'm not trying to define non-duality or concepts like awakening and enlightenment, simply trying to share my experience of the paradigm shift I experienced. And recently I was thinking about getting old. This came to me more because of social media, and I find social media to be fascinating. It didn't exist when I was younger, so watching it evolve and watching human discourse and interactions evolve as a result, for me, has been a super cool social experiment to observe and, of course, participate in. And these days I see it as more of a reflection of where we're at as a species. It helps give me insight into our collective psychology or inner evolution. It helps me understand what's important to the people around me, since I no longer completely relate to those things. It helps me to understand and navigate the reality of what others are experiencing, to help me relate and empathize, and to avoid accidentally challenging the people I interact with perspectives that aren't helpful to their current paradigm. And as I get older, so does a large cross-section of my network of connections. I watch in real time as they start to exhibit characteristics we used to laugh about when we were younger. Some of these behaviors are simply natural and unavoidable side effects of physically growing older, such as moving slower, forgetfulness, and diminishing eyesight or hearing. But a lot of what we consider signs of being old only really exist in our minds because we let them, we feed into them, we create them. There seems to be a loss of mental flexibility when we become more solidly entrenched in the character we've built. We get so invested in that character, and we lose a lot of our ability to accept new ideas and change. And as I get older, I see more and more of the people I've known for decades expressing how much they suffer because the world has moved on. And it makes me a little sad to see these once vibrant people choosing to live in their past instead of their present, constantly comparing what it is to what they used to have, what they used to be, what they used to love. And so much of this is centered on their small piece of the world, as progress naturally changes the cities and towns we grew up in, as the natural areas we enjoyed become developed and overrun, as fashion and music trends shift and evolve, and our cultural awareness evolves to make behaviors of the past seem shockingly inappropriate. I read somewhere that every 25 years the values and morals of a society change so dramatically that the people of the current age look back with horror and disgust at the way society used to be. But what's more shocking to me is that collectively we don't seem to notice that this is how it's always been. Every single generation experiences this, idolizing the times they grew up in, never really realizing that their parents and grandparents felt the same way about how our now compares to their back then. I remember vividly when this started to happen to me, when I started to feel the tug of nostalgia and my resistance to change. But for some reason I was also aware I had a choice. I could choose to focus on the past and lament the loss of things I valued and loved and enjoyed. Or I could accept the impermanence of reality and exist in the now. One of the things I was feeling at the time was regret that I hadn't appreciated what I had when I was in my 20s specifically. I had taken it all for granted, thinking this is just how things would always be. So when things changed, I suddenly valued the world my past self lived in, and it hurt to realize I could never go back. But at the same time I started having those feelings, I realized that I was in danger of doing the same exact thing with the moment I was currently in. I was taking what I was experiencing now for granted, failing to appreciate things that were destined to change and disappear once again, and I'd probably miss those things when they were gone. I realized that if I was going to find any satisfaction in life, I would have to change that dynamic and start appreciating things as they were. And it seemed like a very simple choice to make. Either repeat the patterns of the past and stay engaged in a closed loop of behavior that would guarantee unhappiness, or actively explore and learn about the ever-evolving now. In fact, I didn't actually even see it as a choice at all if I wanted to have a life that satisfied and fulfilled me. But I can definitely understand why this isn't an easy path to follow. It's a lot of work. As we get older, we search for a sense of peace more than adventure. We get tired of being confused, of cramming our brains with more information, of existing in a state of not knowing or understanding. We want comfort, predictability, reliability. And it takes a huge amount of energy and time for us to create the characters we're comfortable with. And once we reach that place, it's incredibly attractive to make that our permanent home. And that's whether we really like who we are, where we're at, or hate it. It's the devil we know, and that consistency is comforting. We become nostalgic romanticizing and living in our past, making that our identity. Then there's another subsection of my aging social media circle that is aware of their dissatisfaction and are focusing on changing their experience. They seem to actively want to transcend the mental and emotional patterns they've created and start exploring the vast variety of techniques and pathways others have used to shift their experience into one that's more fulfilling. And I feel for my friends who are going through this because it's a confusing and difficult path to follow. It's a space where we no longer want to identify with a character that's unhappy and has problematic behaviors and creates problematic experiences. But we struggle to figure out how we can actually become a character we can feel good about. And a lot of times this leads to us adopting practices and perspectives of characters we admire. But inside, it's still a constant battle. We search out things like yoga and meditation or crystals, tarot cards, self-help recovery, and we learn the ideas, we learn the language, we learn the practices. And it does help, but it's only part of the process because inside we're still struggling to make it all make sense. Some of us even manage to convince ourselves that we really are this new character while our actions remain inconsistent, because as long as we want to be different, we're not actually being different, if that makes sense. This is a hard phase to go through, and an even harder one to stay in. It's a phase of trying and failing and hoping and getting discouraged. It creates depression and anxiety, and in the extreme can lead to suicidal thoughts. I see this as the symptoms of the slow breakdown of the character itself. And it's painful because we identify that character as ourselves. The more we hold on to it, the more painful it is. The more we attach to what was, the harder it is to appreciate what is. When I made this shift, I changed my experience in the world, my experience of the world. Where I might once have been standing still in the middle of a river that was raging past me, I had now chosen to cut loose the anchor that was holding me in place, holding me back from being in the here and now. And so I began flowing forward again, staying engaged in the impermanence of material reality. Or more accurately, I stopped suffering from the awareness of the passage of time, because as I'm floating along, I'm always here in the same place as the river carries me along. And sure, it's kind of swapping the comfort and security for a landscape flowing past at a breakneck speed, ever changing and completely unpredictable. But my experience as I float is calm and peaceful. And when I stood in one place, it was constant struggle and noise and chaos. I guess that's it for now. Thanks again for joining me on this beautiful day in this beautiful place. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a great day.